It was a crazy race last time out at the first ever Tuscan Grand Prix, and now our attention turns to the much more sedate Sochi, where every race has been won by the high-flying Mercedes team. Welcome back to the Grid Talk podcast. Today we will be previewing the Russian Grand Prix. Hosting today will be me, not George Howson, but Ruby Price. And joining me will be engineering student Owain Medford.
Hello.
Motorsport podcaster Philip Mathew.
Hello, hello.
And the CEO of the Chris Medland Fan Club, Sam Thatcher.
Yeah, hi, thank you for that. It never gets old, the intros.
Never gets old.
Never gets old.
That's the kind of thing we need to get on a t-shirt now. Like, we've got all the quotes from Formula One. Now we need to get, our own branded stuff on there.
Yeah. I'd wear that with pride. Like, to Silverstone next year if it's on. I'd wear that every day of the week, every day on there. Yeah.
Every day.
I love you, Chris Medland. If you do want this. Thank you.
Very much a crazy race last time out, wasn't it, in Mugello? Only half the field finished. Yeah,
it was like a race of old where, for one reason or another, just half the field finished and that were it. I was expecting it wasn't sort of rain related either. This was just sort of a bit of misjudgment from a few drivers and kind of went insane. So, to be honest, it's going to be a bit of a shame to see it to go from that high to Sochi.
And there was obviously like a lot of debate over like who was at fault and stuff, particularly after the race. I think 8 of the drivers got called to the stewards after the race. Philip, was there anyone that stood out for you as to, who was to blame for any of the shenanigans that happened?
I think what is in the first wreck, which took out Max Verstappen, I believe the Russian rocket, since we're going there this week, I think was part of that deal. He took out Gasly and Verstappen, so he just decided he wanted to get on the good graces of Dr. Marco and just take all of them out in one shot. The restart, which you could blame it on so many people, Bottas bringing him up really slow, some of the people brake testing in the middle of the field. There really is nothing, I don't really know who you could pin it on per se. It's just a shame that, like Carlos Sainz basically hit a parked car. And when you have Romain Grosjean saying how bad the driving standards are, when you consider it's Romain Grosjean, you know that you have an issue with the restart procedures. And it's hopefully something that later, maybe next year, it'll be fixed. But I also look at some of these races when you have the Bahrain to the Roval, and you have the Imola coming up later this year, even Portimao with some of their long straights, we could have similar kind of incidents. So something to see, but I don't know. They've had time to cool off, and we're definitely going to a track where there's not going to be a whole lot of action. So they'll be able to be hopefully on their best behavior.
And as you mentioned as well, there's obviously one of the issues that was caused by that was the long straight that was on the safety car restart, essentially. Sam, we're coming up to Russia, which obviously has that very long straight as well. There's a lot of circuits on the calendar that have very long straights, particularly where safety cars end, Azerbaijan being one of them as well. There's been a lot of talk as to whether we need to reassess, the safety car start procedure. We saw 2 standing start restarts again this weekend. What do you think potentially could be, the best way of dealing with this kind of thing?
It's quite a difficult question. Well,
do they even need to address it, really?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know what else they can do. How are they going to police how the leader restarts the race after a safety car period? Are they going to have to tell them to keep it a maximum speed or a minimum speed once the safety car accelerates and beyond the safety car line? Maybe that's something, but it's kind of hard to say for sure what they can do. I think it's perfectly okay as it is, really. That was just kind of a freak incident. We don't see that very often. Yeah, and as for whose fault it was quite difficult to pin on one guy, as Phil said. Maybe George Russell, because he was how it all started. But I wouldn't want to blame him because he's still quite a young driver. Yeah, I don't want to pin it on one guy because that's quite harsh. There's obviously loads of them got called to the stewards, so it was just a big racing incident, and obviously obviously good to see everyone was okay. There was only Carlos Sainz that had his like injury with hand, wasn't it? So yeah, as for I don't really know what they can do. I think it's fine as it is. And as for Russia, I don't really see anything like that happening, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a certain case. Like, as I mentioned, Sochi's usually a lot more sedate. So let's move on to, this weekend's race. Obviously, this is the preview show. Owain, as I mentioned in the opening, Mercedes have won every single race that we've had at Sochi. And with the dominance of that W, is it the 10, 11? I can't remember.
11, I believe.
Yeah, with the dominance of the W11, it would be hard to see anything different happening this weekend, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be just a Mercedes win, as most people would predict. It's it's scary how quick they are, and obviously it's a track that we know Valtteri Bottas goes well at, and Lewis Hamilton's always got the ability to go well at almost any track you drop him at. So, I don't see there being too much of an issue for them, really. I think they'll probably smash it.
Yeah, I certainly think from my own perspective that, if anyone's going to win it this weekend, it's going to be Lewis. Like, Valtteri very much has been acting a bit like a limp dog recently, as much as he wanted to be put onto a different strategy to Lewis last weekend. Like, at the end of the day, they both finished the race on the same tyres. He's just not really had it, apart from the start of the season where Lewis was experiencing, I guess you could call it issues. We'll call it issues. Yeah. Philip, what would you make of, Valtteri Bottas at this point? Like, everyone talks a lot about Valtteri 3.0, 4.0. What's it going to take for Valtteri Bottas to actually, mount any sort of comeback this season?
There isn't going to be a comeback this season, unfortunately, for Valtteri Bottas. God love him. He's a really good guy, and he's been a good teammate to Lewis for, I think, maybe one of the seasons. He's really pushed him as Lewis's teammate, but otherwise there's been a lot of issues. And I think Sam mentioned it a few episodes ago. I think we were talking about that, how many levels of Valtteri we're at, or how many versions we're at. And this is one of his best racetracks, honestly. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me he goes out there and wins this weekend. He goes and it's fine to win practice and qualifying, but it all counts on Sunday anyway. If he gets a start, which he hasn't been all year, except for, Austria, the first race of the year, then what's to say he can't beat Lewis? I mean, that car is so dominant that it should be able to be managed that way, with both drivers. Do I really believe that's going to happen? No, but it's possible, because it is a track that he's always shown to be very good at, and it's in the grand scheme of things, it would be nice for either Bottas or Max Verstappen to get a win there, to make it a little bit more interesting, make it a little more dramatic as we get to later in the season. But it all depends on Valtteri and where his head is at. And unfortunately, it's the mental game has kind of failed him. He has to take cues from his mentor and manager, Mika Hakkinen, in how he had to beat Michael Schumacher when people never thought that he could, and he did. He was one of the only people who really gave Michael Schumacher a problem. And so he kind of has to take cues from that. He doesn't have to do the stupid stuff that Nico Rosberg said to do or whatever. He has to just be himself, but focus and get out of his own way. And then maybe we'll see the best out of him.
Yeah. I mean, like, the thing that caused Nico to eventually manage to pass Lewis Hamilton in 2016 was Nico completely changing his style and maybe throwing in a couple of head games as well. So, Sam, from potential title challenges to, not anymore, Max Verstappen wrote off Red Bull's title chances this week because another DNF left Max Verstappen, just too far away really to mount any sort of challenge. But on the plus side, on the other side of the garage, Alex Albon finally got that very first podium that he's been denied so many times. What would you make their chances this weekend?
Yeah, well, as for the title, him dismissing their title challenges now, I would have thought they was dismissed at the start of the season, to be honest. I don't know why they even thought they would even challenge. I mean, they're nowhere near Mercedes on raw performance. But yeah, quite happy for Alex Albon to get his first podium. I think it was quite deserved, and to kind of silenced a lot of critics that say, "Oh, he's not good enough for the car. He needs to get out of the car and whatnot." So good for him. I mean, there's obviously quite a lot happened in a race to get him there, but you've got to finish the race to get into the podium. So fair play. As for this weekend, it's difficult to say where they'll be. I think obviously they're not going to match Mercedes on raw pace. It's a very, 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 very power orientated track. Mercedes is obviously going to be the team to beat, as we said. But Red Bull, yes, I think they could probably snag that third position in the podium. And without wanting to be, I know it's boring, but I'm guessing it could be the classic podium of Hamilton, Bottas and Verstappen, to be honest, because if Verstappen does finish this race, then I can definitely think he'll beat Albon. I don't think Albon's going to match him on raw pace on any track, to be honest. And yeah, last race he was very unlucky with the DNF. And race before, what happened to him in Belgium? I can't remember. He didn't finish in Belgium for some reason. I can't remember why. But yeah, no, I think definitely be second best team, I'd say.
Red Bull have absolutely overlapped Ferrari as the second best team on the grid.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well, yeah. Ferrari's another conversation. But...
Ferrari's a conversation that we will have in 3 teams' time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, Red Bull are the second best team. But yeah, I don't see them challenging Mercedes unless we get another crazy race.
Yeah, and that's probably not what we're going to see in Russia. So, Owain, moving on to McLaren. Carlos Sainz, obviously very unfortunate to not finish last weekend's Grand Prix, was on the podium in the Monza Grand Prix. He's going to bounce back this weekend. You know, you never know in 2020. It's a good season. He might even end up on the podium at Russia.
I think he'll want to. I don't see any reason why not, to be honest. McLaren's quite strong with them being third in the constructors' titles, and like you say, obviously Carlos Sainz got fourth in the last race, and I don't know who got where in what.
He got second in Monza, didn't he?
Yeah, it's obviously second in Monza, and I'm just thinking of Norris. I can't remember where Norris ended up in.
Norris was fourth in Monza.
No, in
Mugello.
Yeah.
I
believe Norris was 5th or 6th.
Yeah, he was at points, but I can't remember where.
Norris was 6th.
Yeah. I think they can. Well, they'll be looking to convert that, obviously, into maybe a better result if they can get it. Maybe a lucky sort of safety car or something like that, or just sort of similar antics. I don't think we'll see it, to be honest, just based on the kind of circuit it is. But it sometimes produces a few hijinks, that sort of thing. So it'd be good to see them sort of do a similarly good result this week.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz obviously going to a team that have performed well here, but that never actually finish well here. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone remembers last season's Russian Grand Prix with all the debacle between Charles and Vettel's planned start, and then ultimately Vettel's breakdown led to the Mercedes win in a weekend where they had no chance really. But
well, I had to go back and watch the highlights from last year, today, because I didn't remember anything that happened, to be honest.
Highlights? There's a such thing as highlights at the Russian Grand Prix? Yeah, that's a first.
It's usually 3 clips, maybe.
It's pit stop overtakes. That's what it is. It's they did a quick pit stop.
Last year it was a 7-minute long video, and there was that incident on the first lap with Giovinazzi, Grosjean, and Ricciardo with the 3 into 1 doesn't go, and then there was the Ferrari incident, as you said, when that controversy with the team radio. So wanted them to get closer, and Charles wanted to get by off the line.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about Ferrari's antics later on anyway. But currently, Racing Point, Philip, this week, Lance Stroll was told that he did very much earn his seat this season. I know that that's quite a controversial viewpoint, especially when most people are considering that arguably the seat for next season shouldn't be going to Lance Stroll, but should be going to Checo. But again, they're a quick team in a straight line, and Russia has some straights. It's mostly straights and 90-degree corners, but they'll be looking to do well this weekend.
Yeah, you would assume that Stroll F1 should be able to do well because they basically have the third best car on the grid because it's the Mercedes clone. But then you consider that a guy who's earned his seat in F1 figures. I mean, I'll say this before I go off. The fact is, Lance Stroll used to be absolute trash at qualifying, and this year he's actually been good. So that actually shows progress. So in that sense, good. God bless you. You learned how to qualify a car. It only took you 4 years in Formula One to do that. But when they go and they do their great strategy, I'd love to know who they employ to do strategy at Stroll F1, because Checo every race, or whether it's Hulkenberg or whether it's any of us here, if you're driving that second car, they figure out a way to screw you, whether it's in qualifying or definitely in the race. And that happened to Checo in the race last week. Also, he didn't have the aero bits because it became like Mark Webber at Red Bull years ago. They made that reference during the broadcast. And they have a chance, but I look at McLaren, I look at even Renault, because they have some good momentum, even though this isn't their type of circuit. They're in a real tough fight, and I don't think that they're fully capable of managing against all of those drivers when everything is on the up and up. You're looking at trying to get fourth place. Do I think they're going to get fourth place? I think McLaren definitely is the lead on that. Getting a top 5 finish would be a good finish for them. It'll probably be Lance because they insist on only favoring one car, even though you need to emphasize both cars for constructors points. But we'll see what happens with them. The Vettel move is a separate thing within itself, but I don't know truly what Stroll F1's really going to do there. It's not a circuit that they've ever really been good at. And then you consider all the bad mojo that's going on within that team. I just don't know how they make a weekend out of it. Maybe they get both cars in the points, but I don't see it.
Sam, let's talk about Renault then. As Philip just mentioned, obviously they have a car that isn't really suited to the Russian sort of circuit, and that was sort of showed by like how well they've done, particularly at the lower downforce circuits over the last 2 race weekends. Where would you say that they could potentially end up? Because I don't think Cyril Abiteboul is going to be getting his tattoo based on the Russian Grand Prix alone.
Yeah, we haven't heard that from Sky enough, have we, about his tattoo?
It's every lap. Just I bet Cyril Abiteboul's looking up tattoo shops in Mugello. I bet Cyril Abiteboul's looking up tattoo shops near Monza. I don't care.
Yeah, it's one of those things that Crofty does when he goes on these tangents that they just don't go anywhere, and then he wonders why he doesn't get the right overtake. Because I'm going on a bit of tangent here, obviously, but probably has been just getting so many overtakes wrong. Like in Monza, he's getting like the wrong person. So he's got like the guy in front has been in front for ages. Then the guy behind him has just got in front. But then he's saying the guy in front's been ages, got by the guy behind. So he's just getting all of that wrong at the moment. And that tattoo thing is probably it's a bit annoying, but yeah.
Maybe that's why he keeps getting things wrong, because he's just so focused on making tattoo jokes.
Yeah. And as Phyllis just said, Alex Jakes, I
think.
Alex Jakes and Alex Brundle in F2 and F3 are a great duo, and I'd love for them to get promoted to F1 in the near future anyway. It'd be sad to lose Martin for Alex. They sound exactly alike, really, don't they? They're doing a great job on F2 and F3. So Renault is always a difficult one to predict because they're so hot and cold, aren't they? Like one weekend they can be great. Next weekends, they're just nowhere. It's just so inconsistent. I imagine this weekend they're going to be 5th or 6th best car. Like probably fine to get into Q3. Maybe one of them will get into Q3. Probably Ricciardo. Ricciardo's really outperforming Ocon in every kind of facet this year. Kind of expected, really. Yeah, Ocon this year has been a bit of a weird one. He's kind of taken quite a bit of time to settle back into F1. And last week he had that spin in, Q3? Was it Q3? Spun?
Q3.
Yeah. which kind of just came out of nowhere, didn't it? And his engineer sounded just quite fed up with him, to be honest, on like the best team radios, like on the video. His engineer just sounded really kind of done with him. Kind of weird. Maybe it's just the way the engineer speaks, but I don't know. But yeah, Renault.
We have been seeing a lot of like clips of, you know, Ocon particularly not being allowed to like criticize his team's decisions.
Yeah, because obviously on the radio at the end of Monza, he came on and was like really, really angry, wasn't he? Like he didn't even like wish Pierre like well. I mean, I know they're not friends anymore, but like, come on, you're both French. You at least congratulate on the win. Anyway, Ocon's been getting a lot of hate this year. Really, I think people used to like him a lot more than what they do now. Coming across coming across as a bit of like an entitled person. I don't know. I don't want to say that, but it's weird. And with them going to Alpine next year, obviously against Nando, that team radio is going to be quite spicy, I think, from that whole team. But yeah, as for Renault this weekend, yeah, maybe fine for the lower end of the points, I'd say.
Yeah, I definitely think they'll be fighting over the lower points regions.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they'll be successful in getting Fernando Alonso to take part in the young drivers test, not without like some form of like, what would be the term? Like time
disguise.
Yeah, basically a disguise, but like the sort of like face de-aging technology that they've been using in Marvel films.
Space-time continuum.
Yeah. Basically, they're just going to have to get a TARDIS and get Fernando Alonso from 1999 and stick him in, you know, the 2021 Alpine car or whatever.
He's going to have to shave all of his facial hair off and then get into somebody else's uniform, and then he'll be in somebody else's helmet. Yeah. Like, he's going to have to be Bubble Boy, and then he sneaks in the car, and then he'll be in the young driver test. And then when he's a 3/10 up on everybody, they'll be like, how is that possible? Oh, yeah, it's Fernando Alonso.
Basically. But yeah, Owain, let's talk about, you know, everyone's favourite highly prestigious midfield team, you know, just to keep making that joke. I want that on a t-shirt. But yeah, Ferrari, we all know it. They're going to be nowhere this weekend. And if they are, it's going to be with Charles, and it'll probably be about 8th.
Yeah, probably. He'll drag it up to Q3, probably start in 10th, make 2 positions off some inspired driving, and Vettel will do some stuff. I don't know what to say. I mean
there's certainly... yeah, go on. It's getting ridiculous, isn't it, with Ferrari?
It's just... we've run out of superlatives. I'll put it this way. I was watching Le Mans earlier today, and spoilers if you haven't watched it. But Aston Martin finished in front of Ferrari, and honestly, I think that's an echo for next year of what's going to happen. So, I mean, I don't see much happening, changing this week. Charles gets a good run. You know, it might be. You know, I was going to say that they might get some good strategy and manage to get the car up there. It's Ferrari, so. No, they won't.
How do you think of that?
I've been up for 24 hours. It's been a long day.
Arguably, to be fair, the only reason Vettel even got points out last race weekend was because of that final restart. Red flag. Like, George Russell very much had every handle of him, and then, you know, all of a sudden it was a level playing field again. Yeah. You know? Because apparently the Williams and the Ferrari are level in performance these days.
I don't know whether that's that's compliment to the Williams or a massive stain on the Ferrari.
George Russell's Williams, not Nicholas Latifi's Williams. We have to go and specify that.
Imagine going back to 2005 and 6 and saying that Ferrari is going to be at the back of the grid in 15 years.
Imagine saying a year and a half ago that Ferrari is going to be at the back of the grid.
Yeah.
Like this Ferrari.
You know, that was arguably their last proper title chance, wasn't it?
Yeah, just, you know, like Sochi last year, you said, right, you see these 2 cars that only didn't win the race because of poor strategy and engine reliability. They're going to be bad because of just the engine's bad. And I don't want to rail on Ferrari too much because, honestly, I should stop. Like, I'm getting addicted to it. But it's not good. It's not good. And I don't think it's going to get any better.
Should we talk about a more appreciated, Italian team? And Philip, let's move on to AlphaTauri. Danny Kvyat managed to get in the points last weekend, I believe.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, he did. I all of a sudden, just because of how many cars dropped out last weekend, I just had a sudden crisis of confidence in that statement. But Pierre Gasly went from winning to not even finishing. AlphaTauri will at least be the lead Italian team this weekend, won't they?
Yeah, there's 3 pseudo. I mean, I guess what do you call actual Alpha is Swiss because they're slobber. But in terms of AlphaTauri, I figure Pierre Gasly recovers because I guess he was on the high of winning his first Grand Prix and how everything went, and it just was a complete washout of a weekend. Didn't even get out of Q1, gets taken out by his teammate and that deal with Max. I think the bigger story is for later in the year with the last few races of F2 to see if Tsunoda is going to take Kvyat's spot, because if he gets the super license points, of course, Kvyat wants to have a good run at home. That's why whoever's showing up there, they're probably going to be showing up there, a lot of them, to see Kvyat. But they're in that same mode. I think Gasly looking at probably a 5th or 6th place finish, possibly. More like, back end of the top 10, like where Sam was saying for Renault. I think that's where he'll be. Kvyat will be struggling to get points at home because that's basically been the way the year has gone. I figure it'll get back to normal for what the team has been so far for most of the season. At a track that is probably, middle of the road for them, that they can maybe make an opportunity out of it with some strat, but we will see. I think Gasly gets back to his usual performances since he's gone back to the junior team.
Yeah, it could be interesting to see the later on in the season as well, because there's only 13 points between AlphaTauri and Ferrari, and if Ferrari, I say if Ferrari are going to continue their poor streak, and if AlphaTauri finish ahead of Ferrari in the standings, there's going to be a national outroar in Italy, at least.
Yeah, Matteo Binotto, I wouldn't want to go home if I was him. I wouldn't want to go back to I'd go into exile probably somewhere. So,
George talked about the dead head and the horse head in his bed.
Horse head in his boot, yeah.
Yeah.
Like in Top Gear when they put the horse's head in James's boot, is it? I can't remember what Top Gear episode that is. But yeah, that'll probably happen to Matteo Binotto.
It's weird. I don't remember the Italian mafia episode of Top Gear.
No, it's in the Botswana one. They put is it a cow's head? I think it was a cow's head.
I think it was a cow's head.
Sorry, we're really going off topic here. But yeah, no, Matteo Binotto, I wouldn't want to be that guy right now. I really wouldn't.
Nah. So, Sam, should we talk about Ferrari B currently? Just because of their team, because of who's in their team. Yeah, the Alfa Romeo. Okay. As most people considered Haas Ferrari B, at this point, you've got to have some degree of actual respectability to be considered a Ferrari B team or even an A team. But anyway, Alfa Romeo, Kimi got some points out last weekend to everyone's surprise, including mine. Dev Tiaghi would have been happy.
He was very happy, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen for them this weekend.
Oh God, no! Unless we get another crazy race, I don't see them being kind of anywhere near points. They'll be lucky to get out of Q1, both of them. Yes, they've not really gone forward this year at all, have they? They've kind of stayed where they are at the back of the field with Haas and Williams. And I'd say Giovinazzi, he's not done bad, but he's not really kind of set the world alight either. I guess it's hard to do that in a car that is kind of not great. But I can see him maybe being kicked out of the team next year, possibly for Schumacher, Schwartzman, Eilert, one of those three, one of the Ferrari Academy drivers, whichever one that wins F2, I imagine will get the lead seat in Alpha if Kimi's still there. Whoever wins F2 out of them, and which could be Schumacher at the moment. He's leading the title championship at the moment, isn't he? yeah, I can see Giovinazzi's days in F1 kind of being numbered, and it's kind of similar to maybe kind of Van Dorn kind of thing, where he's not really had the car to prove what he can do. So maybe kind of a move for him to, Haas maybe next year. I don't know, but yeah, Alpha this weekend, yeah, nowhere near the points unless we get another bonkers race, which in Russia I don't think we're going to get, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. Owain, let's talk about Haas then. That again, it's these Ferrari powered teams. They're just not really anywhere this season.
No, and they're clearly the worst of a bad bunch, unfortunately. They used to, everyone joked obviously that they were a Ferrari clone, but they actually are in the sort of performances. They're not really doing anything setting the world alight. I mean, Grosjean was 12th, but that's the last of the runners last weekend out. And see, then Magnussen was he wasn't classified, but they I think it was luck that Grosjean was still classified and wasn't taken out in that accident. And Magnussen, I think, had he been in the race still, he probably would have beaten him. But I don't see it being particularly prosperous when it comes to them at Sochi, because again they just don't have the straight line speed, and it's not the sort of place where you can counter that at all. It's at sea level. It's going to be hot, so I don't see them going to be able to make any inroads really.
Yeah, it's as much as you like seeing teams being competitive. It's a shame to be seeing Haas just really struggling with the fact that they're the latest brand new team in Formula One, and based on what we've seen recently, like it looks like they might continue to be the last brand new team in Formula One for quite some time. And just seeing them languishing about, struggling to get any points is quite depressing, really. But speaking of depressing as well, Philip, last weekend we were all cheering him on. George Russell looked like he was finally going to get that first point.
Yeah.
And then he lost out because of a restart.
Stroll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are they going to do this weekend?
Hopefully George can get into Q2 again. Think that's a doable thing for him. That would be step one, showing the progress that the team has made at least in Q trim with him in the car. I mean, Latifi's whatever, he'll just be around. If he doesn't fall out of the race, he'll probably finish last. It's about Russell and what he can do. There's really no option in a fully dry race that he would be up there without, the craziness of last week. I mean, of course, his weekend was unbelievable. I mean, he basically ran flat out through a sand trap or in the dirt in Q1 and still almost made it out of Q1, which was impressive. And then which tells you that possibly the Williams car is better on dirt than it is on pavement, which might be its own separate thing. Then his performance in the race was great. I mean, yeah, you had the multiple restarts, but in the second restart, we talked about it earlier with the Ferrari discussion. He was beating a 4-time world champion, albeit the car is not good, but he was beating a 4-time world champion on pace. I mean, like that's the best thing that Williams has done since when they had Bottas and Felipe Massa back a few years ago. Like that's the best they've looked in a long time. But this week it's just going to go back to normal. Just try to hopefully get out of Q1 with George and then just see if they can get a finish out of the deal. Unfortunately, they might have some options later in the year, maybe if they get an upgrade or two to possibly back into a point, but that'll probably be later of the year.
So that's the grid. Well, I say the grid. That's all the constructors that we've talked about now. I feel we should make some podium predictions. It's cliche, but at this point, it's exactly what you expect. I'm going Hambot there. It's how it's going to happen, and I genuinely don't think anything different is going to happen.
I'm going to go for Verstappen and then Bottas because it's going to be warm, and Mercedes don't like it when it's warm.
So Verbot.
Hamverbot, yeah.
Hamverbot.
Not Hambot ver. Hambot ver.
Philip, whilst you're still here, what's yours?
Yeah, number 90. Number 91
Hello?
happens. Number 91 happens at Putindrome. I don't remember where Schumacher won his last race, but it definitely had to be better than Putin drove. And so that'll happen. And I do agree with Owain that Verstappen gets second. I'll deviate off of the usual, and I'll get crazy, and I'll say Lando, goes and gets a podium in third place with some tire call or something like that, and gets third place on Sunday.
I feel like the McLarens do have the potential to cause an upset this weekend.
Intriguingly enough, Schumacher's last win came at the 2006 Chinese Grand Prix. So that's a bit, what's the word?
Trivia?
Trivia.
Yeah. Random circuit.
It parallels with it being, Formula One's push into the large countries like that.
Right. I think my internet's sorted itself out now.
Hey, Sam, what's your podium?
Okay, I'll get it done quick, just in case something happens. Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Boring, I know.
Hamburg there.
Hamburg there.
And whilst you're still stable, what's your bold prediction?
It's quite hard to think of one, really. Sochi is usually such a dull race. Nothing kind of interesting ever happens, really. Williams to get a point. So
Williams to get a point. That's pretty bold.
To get a point, yeah.
Owain?
Bold prediction. More than 0 on-track overtakes.
More than 0 on-track overtakes.
I believe there were 0 on-track overtakes last time.
Philip?
Bold prediction has nothing to do with the actual race. It'll be the over-under is 3 showings of Putin during the race, because it's such a dull procession that they're just going to be showing every reaction that he has or lack thereof, and who he's probably going to try to end by the end of that particular race.
We're going to get murdered. We're all going to die.
He never really looks kind of bothered, does he? He never really looks like he wants to be there.
Yeah.
Whenever you see him, he's kind of like, "Oh, I've got to be here. Get me back."
I mean, that's most dignitaries at most new Formula One races. Let's be honest.
True. Yeah.
At this point, my bold prediction is going to be that we're all alive by the next grid.
Oh no, we'll be here.
Philip's alright. He's in the US, but we're in the UK. Like,
no,
I'm wrong.
No, I'm not. We're no better off here. We're no better off here.
The Russians wouldn't try and kill anyone on US soil.
Yeah, not yet.
So we'll call that a show. Yeah. We now have an official store for merchandise. Just go to the Chronicles website to get custom mugs, t-shirts, and more. We're available now on Amazon Music, as well as YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Cast. Just search for Grid Talk. There's a huge back catalogue of shows. After this episode, there's now 60. We've got ones featuring Mario Zola from Pirelli. We've got some on Tiregate, some on Senna. We're on Reddit. Just search for the subreddit F1 Grid Talk. And we have Patreon for mics, lights, and better recording equipment. We'll be back on Saturday to review the Russian Grand Prix qualifying. Thank you very much for joining me, guys.
Not a problem.
Sorry about the internet issues.
And thanks to everyone watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
In a bit.